Hello, everyone. My name is Becca Riddle, and I just wanted to welcome you to Court Street Christian Church's services this week. I'm so glad that you found us, however it was, Facebook, YouTube, if you're streaming from our website, we're just so glad that you're here. I'm happy that you are taking some time out of your week to actually have church. However that looks like for you this week, if you're cozy in bed in your pajamas or you're driving in your car listening, it's so good that you've taken some time to just hear a message that our pastors have prepared for you. And we just hope that this is a conversation that just keeps happening in your week, that it's changing you and transforming you and encouraging you. So thank you for being part of it. We do know that this is reaching you and it's changing you because a lot of you are reaching out to us and telling us, and we just love that. We love hearing from you. And so I wanted to just quickly read from one of our viewers. This is from YouTube, and this is from a woman named Joy. She says this: "Thank you for your church. You are such a blessing to me when I listen to you on live stream. I've also been blessed when I've been able to come and worship with you in person. But God bless you for all that you do." Joy, thank you so much for the encouragement. We appreciate it. And if you would love to let us know how this is changing you or encouraging you, please reach out to us on any of our platforms. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so let's listen to some worship music. You're welcome to sing along or just let it all wash over you, however you do that best. And then we're going to hear a great message from our lead pastor, Pastor Corey. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. Play. a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is, and nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us, so Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. Oh, what could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. Oh, what a wonderful name it is, and nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is, the name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is, the name of Jesus. Oh, we love to sing of who you are. We love to sing of your name. Lord, we trust you, Jesus. Oh, just sing this out, sing that. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life. Come on, wherever you are, sing this out. You have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Come on, yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is, what a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ, my King. Oh, what a powerful name it is, and nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus. Come on, you have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory, yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is, what a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is, and nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is, the name of Jesus.
Greetings, church. It's good to be with you today. Corey Spangler here with Court Street Christian Church, and we're excited to share a Sunday with you. And we get to start a new sermon series today, which I'm super just enthusiastic about. And the title of the sermon series is Start Close In. Now, when you hear a phrase like this, it may make you kind of cock your head a little bit and go, huh? You know, we have a dog that we dearly love. Her name is Ellie. Here's a picture of her. And Ellie, I don't know if some of you consider Chihuahuas to be the cutest thing in the world, or maybe you consider them to be not a real dog because of their size. I run into both things. I believe both at different times, but I just got to tell you, Ellie's super cute and she has quite the personality. One of the cute things that she does is when she hears something that she doesn't understand and she doesn't think it's a threat, she kind of cocks her head really funny like this. She just kind of does this, and her little ears start getting real expressive, like, what is that? What do I hear? What's going on? And maybe that's the experience that you have when you hear the phrase, start close in. It's actually something that we've chosen. It's a line of poetry, which I'll share the poem with you in just a moment, but it's one of those phrases that I hope has some sticking power. It's what I consider to be a spiritually interrupting type phrase where you go, okay, I need to recalibrate based around what this is, and I need to start close in. So there's a poet that I really like. I know, by the way, when I talk about poetry sometimes, poetry's been definitely an acquired taste for me. Over the years, I've had misconceptions, I've been confused by it, the whole deal, but I've over time developed a palette where I really appreciate certain poetry. And the poem that I'm going to share with you today comes from somebody who I just have a lot of respect for, and the poem has this cadence to it, where it's highly practical. And I don't know about you, I normally don't think poetry and super practical. It's something that kind of messes with you, you know? And this messes with you, but it also is a poem that really activates you. So the person who wrote it is a living poet. He's alive today. In fact, he lives right here in the Northwest. His name is David Whyte, and he's a fascinating dude in my estimation because he comes from Welsh-Irish descent, but now he's living in the Pacific Northwest. He has a degree in marine zoology, and he spent a lot of his younger years as a naturalist, doing different expeditions and studying the natural world in the Galapagos Islands. He led expeditions in the Andes, in the Amazon, in the Himalayas, and then now he is actually a leadership and a creative consultant for Fortune 500 companies, for government agencies. But really, what's his heart and soul and his bread and butter is he's a poet. And so he has all these fascinating, kind of diverse out there life experiences. And yet when he puts pen to page, for me, something pretty inspiring happens. And it's from a poem that he's written called Start Close In that we're borrowing, that opening line for this sermon series. So with that build up, you know a little bit about the author. You know a little bit about what we're hoping this does inside of our souls. Are you ready for the poem? Are you ready? I'm not going to go on until somebody comments or does something online or till you say something back at the screen. I don't have a great poker face. Just kidding. Let's get into the poem. Here we go. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step that you don't want to take. Start with the ground that you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Later in the sermon series, we'll look at that through the lens of prayer. It's a pretty compelling on-ramp to prayer. Then he goes on, wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. Take a small step that you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. And he concludes, start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step that you don't want to take. Maybe that's all you needed to get today, and you're already like, Corey, you just blew up my intentions for the week. I need to recalibrate, and I need to rethink everything that I was going to do. And I want to look at this poem today in light of where do we start, how do we start close in, how are we going to launch into this sermon series, and we're going to find some inspiration for integrating it into our lives I hope this comes to you and is inspiring to you as it has been to me through the life of Jesus. And so we're going to look at this scripture. Maybe many of you are familiar with it. It is referred to as the story of the woman that's been caught in adultery. And I want to look at it, though, through this lens of starting close in with ourselves. And I want to look through the lens of this story, through the lens of looking at it as a leadership lesson, okay? Normally we look at it as a grace lesson, and it's the gift that keeps giving in that way, the dignity that Jesus gives to the woman. But I want to look through this lens of where do we start? And what are the leadership principles that Jesus is operating by? So this will be exciting. Let's take a look here. This comes from the 8th chapter of John's Gospel, and it goes like this. It says, "At dawn, Jesus appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people were gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them." It's a common thing for him, and this teaching in this public place. And it says that the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman that was caught in adultery. So they bring in this gal to the temple courts, and they make her stand before the group that Jesus is teaching, and they say to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women." This is a brutal form of execution where you grab big nasty stones and throw them at somebody until they decease. And so this is a pretty intense moment here and pretty intense thing they're putting before Jesus. And they say to him, "What do you say?" That's what the law says that we're supposed to do in this situation. You're a teacher, you're a rabbi, you're here in the temple. Shouldn't we uphold the law? And then the scripture lets us know what was going on inside of their hearts, and it says they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. Okay? So the drama in this moment is incredibly thick, and the stakes are incredibly high for Jesus. This is what we would call, if we were in this situation and people were putting the spotlight on us at the crucial moment, we might say, this is a no kidding situation. And in the words of Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. And we would feel that pressure and we would feel the anxiety. And let me help you understand why there was so much pressure in this situation. It's because they are appealing to this Old Testament law, the law that their culture, that their religion, that everything is based on for them. And they're saying, as a teacher of this, as a rabbi, you have to uphold this and you have to encourage people to follow through on it. Now, the Jewish nation at the time is an occupied nation. They're underneath Roman rule, Roman government. And part of that legal system that they are under says that the only people that can carry out executions are the Romans. And so these people that the Romans have conquered, they're not just allowed to go around killing people or dispensing their own laws and doing these things. The only people that can make that high-level decision, that authority belongs only to the Romans. So what they have just done with Jesus is they truly have set a trap where they've pitted Jesus publicly in front of all these folks with this situation that demands a response. And they're saying, what are you going to follow? Are you true to the laws that we grew up with and the Bible? Are you being true to God? Or are you going to, and in doing that, you'll actually violate Roman law and show that you're taking a stand for God and taking a stand for all this stuff? Or are you going to submit to Roman law and break the laws of our ancestors? Drama in the temple, drama on the high seas. This is an intense moment. Now, as I look at this, I'm experiencing this, trying to put myself into Jesus' shoes, and the leadership temperature has gone up. There must have been this awareness that what takes place next could bring about the end of Jesus' life. He could be sentenced by the Romans if he follows through with the Mosaic law and has her executed. He could end up being ostracized. In fact, the Pharisees specifically, they didn't like Jesus' message. They were threatened by the way that Jesus was talking and the good news that Jesus was sharing. And so they were really looking for a way to basically cancel culture Jesus and to have something where they could say, look, we found it. This guy, don't listen to him. Don't buy any of his stuff. Don't follow him. He's a fraud. Or the ultimate example of canceling him would be if they could get him killed. And so there's this situation. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot at stake. And it's one of these situations that's this powder keg where I could also imagine Jesus feeling very angry. Angry because these folks are bringing in this lady. By the way, where's the man? And they're using her indiscretion as a way to try and trap Jesus. They're basically using her like a pawn. And one thing that God doesn't like is when we as his kids use other people for selfish and especially malicious purposes. So this is what's going on. What's Jesus going to do? The laws, the future, their history, the Romans, his own life, everything's hanging in the balance. And what does Jesus do? Here's what the story says. Jesus bends down and he starts to write on the ground with his finger. And they must have kind of like looked at each other, and it says that they keep on questioning him, going, so what do you say that we do? What do you say that we do? They keep after him. And after a moment or two of this, it says that Jesus straightens up and he says to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Beautiful. Genius. And again, it says that he stoops down and he just starts to write on the ground. What he's just done is he's taken this big situation with these big implications, the Roman law, the Jewish law, the this, the that, the trap that's been set for Jesus, are we going to get them? And he's just brought it, remember the phrase, close in. You, any one of you that's without sin, go ahead and be the first to cast the stone. Goes on to say that at this, they realized that their gig was up, that Jesus had them, that they weren't going to fulfill the law either, because they now had encountered something even more personal in the application of it. They now saw themselves in it. And so it says that those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with this woman still standing there. And Jesus straightens up and he asks her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she says. Then Jesus says, neither do I condemn you. And he declares to her, go now and leave your life of sin. I just love this story. It's got so many ways that we can look at it and find just beautiful inspiration for how we live our lives. And again, I want to remind you, I want to look at this through this lens of where do we start with things and how do we lead? What leadership lessons can we learn from this as we lead ourselves, as we lead others, as we influence our families, and even the course of our very nation? And so I've got three things that I want to point out here that Jesus leaned into, not just in this moment, but consistently throughout his life. And they're pretty inspiring. These are more interruptive phrases. Maybe one of these will really stick out to you more than others, and you'll carry it with you into your week this week. The first one that I want to point out is just this. Jesus started close in, and he moved. He acted for peace over pressure. The stakes were high. The pressure was on, but Jesus made a decision and he moved from the place of peace. This is a word, specifically this phrase was spoken into my life by a spiritual mentor to me along the way as I was caught up in things of the world and what I was going to do about it. And Corey and his younger self was going to fix it all, was going to make it right, was going to save the day, play the heroics. And this person pointed out, they helped me to see, to bring it close in and to say, man, you're really frantically chasing and trying to fix all these areas of pressure, but you're not really moving from the place of peace, the place where you're centered, where you found your own ground, where you've connected with God, and from there you can move and you can affect what's around you. But it's much easier sometimes, isn't it, to bounce around for pressure. Or Jesus could have tried to appease everybody. Okay, everybody, just calm down. Let's negotiate this out. And he could have tried to explain it, but he handles it so beautifully. Even in the way at first he just goes silent and he refuses to even talk. Second thing that I want to point out, start close in and move for peace over pressure and respect over fear. You know, this is a phrase that I use in my parenting with my daughters quite a bit. I've always as a dad, wanted to help them understand some of the more maybe threatening and difficult things in life. And I wanted them to understand that they don't have to be afraid of those things, but they do need to respect them. One of the most recent, just kind of a simple thing that came up in our household, but this was illustrated pretty beautifully, was we were loading the dishwasher, and the dishwasher has traditionally been my chore. I actually like the dishes. I don't know why it's therapeutic for me. I had to do it as a kid, lamented it. Now as an adult, it's a lot of fun. I like loading the dishwasher. If you ever have me come to your house after the pandemic and we're hanging out and eating a meal, I might just load yours for you because I like it that much, okay? But I've been training my daughter, Elena, about how to load the dishwasher properly. You know, I get really passionate about that because you can load a dishwasher and it's like, it has room for double that amount. And so I've been helping her understand how to put things and how to put things safely, where to put knives and all this kind of deal. Well, we have a blender in our house, and this blender has this pretty intense apparatus in the middle that you can remove, that you have to clean, but it's got all these blades, these double-sided blades. It almost looks like some kind of a weapon or something like this. And I've cut myself on this thing. I mean, it is that sharp, and there's really only one way to grab it very gently from the top. But if you reach in and bump up against it, you're getting cut. And so I was teaching Elena how to load this specifically in the dishwasher, and I just let her know. I said, hey, listen, sweetheart, this thing right here can really mess you up. It's cut me before. It has all these things on it. If you bump up against it, it's going to cut you. It's that sharp. And she literally stepped back from it. She's like, I don't want to put that in the dishwasher. And I said the phrase to her. I just go, Elena, I go, you don't need to be afraid of this thing, but you just need to respect it based on what I just told you. Here's how you handle it. Here's how you put in. When it's time to take it out, it's the first thing that you take out, and you do it this way. We don't have to be fearful and live underneath that. Fear is part of our lives. Even Jesus experienced fear, but we can find the place to move and where to start out of respect. It could have cost Jesus everything. The woman's life was at stake, and he didn't make a fearful decision, even though the drama was thick. He made this respectful outcome. Third thing here that I want to say. I know I'm going quick through these, but we've got a lot to talk about today. So start close in and move for peace over pressure, respect over fear, and the last one is love over anger. You know, Jesus could have jumped up after a dramatic pause on the ground, and he could have said something, channeled his inner Jack Nicholson and been like, you can't handle the truth. And, he could have just gone around the thing and undressed everybody like this, like a drill instructor. And, there's a time and a place for anger. In fact, elsewhere in the scriptures, we see Jesus experiencing anger and expressing it. And anger is a place that can really get us up off our keisters, can it? But I want you to hear this. The life of Jesus and the life that we're living testifies to this. Anger is not a sustainable emotion. It's not fuel for everyday life. And a lot of us are running around, aren't we? We can get caught up in the culture of anger, the culture of outrage that exists, and we can just be blown from one angry thing to the next, to this, to that. And Jesus, while he accesses anger at times, he's really moving, and he's starting from the position of love, which is sustainable, which does build up, which does bring about a good outcome. And in this situation, Jesus is really, he's teaching everybody, isn't he? He's not condemning anyone, even the people that have brought her in here in this sick attempt to trap Jesus. He's actually just done something very loving, and he's dealt with them honestly, and he's helped them bring their moral principles and their all this, big drama close in, where they have to look in the mirror and they have to acknowledge before God and the people around them, I have sinned too. There's something here for me to own, not just to go out and to condemn others. So this right here, if this didn't mess with your week, if this doesn't mess with your tweets, if this doesn't mess with the way that you work or the way that you're parenting your kids or the way that you're just thinking inside of your head, you really need to hit the back button a few times and get it again, because this is some very convicting, very inspiring, and transformative stuff. And Jesus just lives this out in such an inspirational way. So here's the question that I have for you this week. This week, what's your first step? That first step, like the poem talked about, close in. What is that first step for you? I want you to be thinking about that as I'm going to tell you a little bit about our first steps in the coming weeks as a church, leading through this pandemic as we've been for the last several months, and what the future holds for us and what our leadership team's been thinking about. You know, what we've decided to do with this series of Starting Close In is we're going to start right where we are, which is we are in a pandemic. We do have these different restrictions that we're operating within, and we don't fear any of those restrictions. I want that to be very clear. We also don't move here and make decisions for pressure, not for pressure, sorry to say it, from the will of people, although that's important, and we love hearing from you and things, but we're making these decisions from the place of peace. We're making these decisions trying to lead well with this sense of vision. And so I want to share a little bit about the vision of what we're going to do next. Specifically, I've been getting some questions from some of you about when are we going to restart our in-person services, and I want to address that here in just a moment. But let me show you just some numbers here that are kind of shaping, and these are surprising things to me. They're also encouraging things to me, and let me help you understand what's been going on in the life of our church. Pre-pandemic, before all this started, you remember before we knew that we could ever run out of toilet paper and hand sanitizer and all that kind of good stuff, pre-pandemic, we had about 315 adults here each week, okay? Coming in here to worship, experience the message, just like you're doing right now. Online, we had about 63 households. And you'll notice the difference between these two numbers here. We knew for sure how many individuals were here, but when it's online, we don't really know. There's sort of this mystery to it. And we had, from different analytics online and things, we had about 235 people that we reached, on average each week through our services. Now, in the pandemic, when we were open for a while for in-person services, we've been open the whole time for services, but when we were open for in-person, what we saw was about 70 people showed up for those months that we were open, on average, okay? But what's been taking place online is we've been having over 297 households participate. And you'll notice the plus there. The reason that we don't know is because we don't get analytics from our cable television that we're on now, our local Salem television, and also out in Kaiser as well. We don't know, and they don't know how many people that is reaching. And so it really has changed pretty dramatically. And now you'll see down below there also our internet tracking has shown that we're now reaching almost 4 times as many people each week through the messages. And so what was going on before was we had this vision where the primary thing was happening in person. And there was also this, we viewed our online thing as our third service is what we called it. We had a 9:30 and 11, and then we had an online. That's switched now. It's switched. And so where most of you are experiencing the services, and where most of you are interacting, and it's even a bigger demographic than if you add up the numbers from before, and so the message is getting bigger. So what we have decided to do for the next few weeks, this whole sermon series of Starting Close In, it's going to have some great implications for you and how you interact in your life. We're also, though, going to be focused on how do we really do digital church as personally as possible and as effectively as possible. I know that statement will be a little bit of a disappointment to some of you, but when are we going to open? When are we going to open? Well, we're hoping to do it in a few weeks, probably early March or late February, sometime in that time frame. We'll see what happens in the world, but that's the goal and what we're working towards. But we're going to get really, really good at doing this because that's where everybody is right now. And if we can get really good at that, it will have some staying power for us as a church. We won't just be confined to this building or what we can physically do, but we can actually reach more people with the good news of Jesus Christ. And we're excited to do that. It's inspiring to us to reach as many people, to share this love that's overflowing in our hearts with as many as possible. And so for these next few weeks, we're going to start close in. We've got this unique opportunity. So often in church work, there's so much to do, and in the nonprofit world, your margins are always thin for things, and so it's difficult to start something new, but we've been feeling like there's more opportunity here for a long time. we now have the opportunity to focus all of our efforts there. And so we're going to do that the next few weeks. What does it look like for you to connect with people digitally? We're going to talk about that. What does it look like for you to relate to God, to worship God? What does it look like for you to experience a church service and have it be not a consolation prize because you're not in person, but to have it actually be the fullness of everything that you long to experience in worshiping God? We're gonna lean into each other. We're gonna brainstorm some ideas, and we're going to get really, really good at doing online church, and that's going to sustain us no matter what happens in the world, or when things change, or if they do. We're going to start close in. We're going to start with what's right in front of us. I'm excited to go through this with you. I'm grateful for your participation with us. You know, as you're interacting with us, I don't think of you as a viewer of our church or a watcher. I think of you as a worshiper, that you are not just a spectator, you are a participant, because we are the church. This conversation is just stirring up the church within you to be the people of God exactly where you are, to the people in your household, to the people in your workplace, to the people in your neighborhood. And we're going to look at doing that and being inspired to do that exactly as we are. So I want to leave you with the poem. I want to leave you with the poem one more time. Like I said, it has this rousing quality to it. I just like it. It makes me want to get up, get out there, and take the first step. Not the second, not the third, not to be too concerned about what's next, because as we go along, often we change, don't we? And those steps change. So let's come back to this. I'll leave you with this today. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, the step that you don't want to take. Start with the ground that you know, that pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. Take a small step that you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused and start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing, close in, that step that you don't want to take. Now you get to go live that out. God bless you, church. I love being one of your pastors. I'm excited for these next few weeks. We're going to get really good at doing this digital church thing in a very personal way. And it's going to bear fruit, I believe, for years to come in our community, in our church, in our world. God bless you. See you next week.